Yeah. So coming here to talk about Carstairs, was a project completed in May, at the end of May this year, and just wanted to have a look at. Let's see if this works. Okay. Yes. Okay. There's me, Carole Markou. So systems engineer, a nice elusive title, but yes, I am signalling, and a member of the IRSC. So today, Eric wanted to pick the Carstairs Junction for the construction slot for the PWI conference today. I'm going to talk a little bit about Carstairs, about the project, and why it was so important that this track renewals went ahead. Talk about the development, which I was very closely involved with, and then some of the access and then construction challenges that we had. So Carstairs, where is Carstairs? It's roughly 30 miles south of Glasgow on the West Coast Main Line, and it's also got the triangular junction here round towards Edinburgh. We've also got Carstairs Station, a bay platform right in the middle of the junction layout. So let's see if the laser works. Yes, okay. So all the sketches that I'm going to show today is the same kind of layout, probably upside down from what track would normally do. That's how signalling works. But over here on the left, we've got Glasgow running down to Carlisle End on the right. And then this is the kind of triangular junction layout here that connects you onto the mid-Calder lines, and this goes towards Edinburgh. So this was the existing Carstairs layout that we started to work on. And it's actually reminiscent of the last kind of major renewal that happened in the 70s when the electrification of the mid-Calder lines ran on, the electrification of the West Coast Main Line ran up to the station, and then you had the non-electrified diesel traffic coming on the mid-Calders, and a lot of shunting around the station area. So some problems with existing layout. So the main connection from the West Coast Main Line towards Edinburgh is actually just 15 miles an hour, and that connects there from the up main at the station area and down here on the up main here. And the up main actually goes round Carstairs Station at 95 miles an hour. There's existing sidings on the upside with the yard as well, and the through sidings go on the curve round from the West Coast Main Line up towards Edinburgh on the Carstairs curve. There's 34 sets of points and ground frames in the layout. So we're just going to talk a little bit about some of the previous projects. So the last major renewals was in the 1970s, and that's when the electrification came through on the West Coast Main Line and the signalling was all recontrolled to Motherwell. Then in the 1990s, there was some more work. So again, the mid-Calder line got electrified at this point in 1991, and the signalling was renewed to a more modern SSI system in 1996. This was actually an old document that we found showing what could have been a Carstairs layout. So when I talked about through sidings there that connected round from the West Coast Main Line to the mid-Calder lines, this is shown here. And this was the programme that was nice and simple back in the 90s. So that's all you need to do. But that did not go ahead. Next up, we've got the West Coast route modernisation programme with all the EPS line speed increases all the way up the West Coast Main Line, except Carstairs was not upgraded. Then in 2013, we found this one. So this is one of the track renewal designs, and what it shows here is that the platforms the station's reduced to one platform here. They've managed to route the West Coast Main Line away from the station. We've got a very long down loop here. We've got double junctions to the north. But yep, that didn't go ahead either. So next up, I was involved in this one as well. This is a larger Carstairs remodelling scheme. Multidiscipline input that actually moved the station further to the north and rebuilt the station. We've got double junctions in all approaches. It was renewing the bridge at the station area, putting in a bridge and taking away a level crossing to the north. Everything, it did everything, but it was far too expensive, so that didn't go ahead either. So that takes us up to about 2018. So what's next? So this is the state of Carstairs. We've got plain line points in the layout. We've got 50-mile-an-hour TSRs on the up and the down West Coast Main Line. Loads of CRT issues, reports of broken rails, dipping tracks, etc. Carstairs couldn't wait for another project not to get funded. And there's the lovely 311, 312 points we discussed. So at Carstairs, for a kind of track renewal perspective, there's a lot of layout restrictions. Where other projects were looking to rebuild bridges and move stations, there was simply no funding for that. So at the north end, we've got the north embankment, so you're limited to 2 tracks here. In the main station area, where the station is, you're limited to 3 tracks between the Strawfrank Road and the station. And then at the south, we've got another bridge here where you're limited to 2 tracks here. So that limits your kind of junction areas. So this is what the track renewals came up with and came to signalling with. And there's a lot of very positive points. So, yep, again, we've got the up main has been slewed away from the station area. That's great. But that through siding we've got is a new Carstairs chord, so that's a higher speed passenger avoiding line to go past the station. The down loop that was here gets moved north, so you can fit your 3 tracks next to the station. Kept the single lead junctions, because we couldn't fit in double junctions, and it's 90 miles an hour on the West Coast Main Line. Another one to note is that on the mid-Calder curve, the higher speed they got there was 25 miles an hour for your connection to Edinburgh. So as that was really good for a kind of track renewals design, there was a lot of constraints that signalling and operations would identify from that. Whereas effectively on the West Coast Main Line, it was actually a line speed decrease. There was no discussion or talk of EPS provision. It's actually quite a restrictive layout round about the station for how the trains operate. And a big one here is that we're limited to 25 miles an hour on the turnout from going towards Edinburgh. So if you've ever dealt with any junction signalling controls, 40 miles an hour is the key speed that you need to get your flashing aspects. And another one as well is the no facility for the Caledonian sleeper. So when all the sleepers run on the West Coast Main Line up to Scotland, and the Lowlander service actually comes into Carstairs, it's a 16 car set, and it actually splits and joins at night and in the morning, and the local has to stable overnight. It's a very specific operation, and this was quite restrictive for that. So what did we do? Because of being involved in so many other of the Carstairs projects, we knew a lot of the train operators' requirements, and that this layout is quite restrictive for that. So at a kind of GRIP 2 stage, we did a kind of feasibility review of the track renewal option, and we got in our colleagues at the train operating companies to review options. So the different kind of considerations they have is freight. They need looping facilities. There's a yard. There's sidings that they use. We've got the kind of higher speed traffic on the West Coast Main Line with Transpennine and Avanti, the sleeper operation, which I've discussed, and ScotRail also operate a kind of commuter and terminating services at the station area. So what did that look like? Oh, there we go. So this was the kind of final track outline that we ended up working on. So, okay, so the down loop, it's in the right place, north of the station, but now it's got 775 metre standage, so that's the longest freight loop we have now in Scotland. We've managed to fit in a double north junction, which provides extra capacity at the station. We've got a new electrified engine line for the Caledonian sleeper, and it really helps with the operation of the splitting and joining. We've got parallel S&C at the station, which provides us more flexibility for trains stopping at the station. We've managed to get 125 EPS for about 2 miles south of Carstairs that wasn't previously done. And that takes you up to Carstairs Junction, where we've got a line speed of 100 over 110 EPS. And the golden ticket here, we got our 40 mile an hour, 40 mile an hour turnouts round towards Edinburgh. This allows the least restrictive junction signalling controls you can have, which goes on to Carstairs East, which wasn't originally in the renewal scheme, but also got added at a later date. But we managed to get that included in the design at the time to get a 50 mile an hour increase over that area as well. So we've got our new layout, but we need to design it. So these are the contractors and design teams that were involved. So NRDD, that was me, I was there. working with our colleagues in the Rail Systems Alliance. So their design teams, Arcadis, they managed the BIM model, the track, the OLE and the civils design. We had Siemens working for the detailed signalling design. And then for construction, it was Siemens for signalling in the new Signalling Collaborative Partnership, and Rail Systems Alliance with Babcock as the track and civils construction, and SPL as overhead line. But all in, it really generally was a one-team approach for all. So now we know what the layout we're going to build, we just need to design it. So modelling comes in, and I've actually pinched this from Arcadis, who did a presentation recently on this, so the building information model. So Arcadis managed that for all the different disciplines, and we had 2 weekly meetings to kind of catch up as a kind of design integration. This was actually right at the beginning of COVID when there was the first lockdown, so it really helped make sure we kept that collaboration going with all the teams. So we managed to include all the survey data, which was continuously being updated, all the design models being integrated, and ran digital IDCs and clash detection. So this meant that all the disciplines had a kind of platform to work together collaboratively. And there's another example of the OLE being shown over the layout. Other modelling that we had to do, because it was such a huge change to the area, and new signalling layout was the signal site model through Giaconda. What they can do is pull in all of the track and OLE designs and render it into a more lifelike model that can be used for the signal sighting tool, but also this is a driver training material. And another side of the modelling that I was involved with is because the layout was changing so much, we had to review all the capacity analysis and timetable modelling for the future timetable for when it ran. And this can show that these are the section running times, which basically run south to east to north, but there's a 2 to 3 minute saving in every direction. And Avanti, last time they tried to get a 4 hours journey time between Glasgow and London, actually blamed it on Carstairs. So if they decide to do it again, hopefully it's not Carstairs that's letting them down. I think they were out by 30 seconds or something. So, right, we've got our design, we've got our teams. How are we going to build it? So the access strategy. The whole layout was actually designed to be built in a multi-stage strategy, which was agreed way before we even got to kind of grip 3-4 level. And this shows you some of the plans that were going in. So it was spread over years 3, 4 and 5, and it was starting in 2021. We were looking at weekly track stages. So the traditional West Coast mainline access that we have, at least in Scotland, I'm not sure for south of the border, is weeks 1 to 10. And so it was based on using the existing access periods that they had with extended engineering access over your normal bank holidays to try and commission it. So what the plan was to do year 3 enabling work, and then in year 4 they were going to rebuild the down main in May 22, the up main at Christmas 22, and then finally the rest of the station area in May 2023. But when you planned all that out with all the different temporary works, signalling testing, everything that's involved in that, it came in at 30 million over budget. So now the project was planned to have a big bang commissioning. So if you go and you ask all your contractors, how long do you need? Well, it's going to be a very long time, isn't it? So we were challenged to get the smallest blockade. And I think the first one that came out was 50 days. And we got told, no one will ever accept that. Then it went to 55, 60, and it went up and up as all the different disciplines pitched in all the work that they needed to do. And eventually it became an 88-day blockade. So it was a very big challenge to go to our stakeholders and the train operators to say why we needed this time to rebuild, because they said, oh, you're stage 1, surely that's just a turnout in S&C renewal, why on earth do you need 17 days? But what they didn't realise is that half the track of stage 2 was being built at the same time. So what they finally agreed to was that there'd be diversion routes on the GS&W lines, which is non-electrified for freight, and the Avanti's held on to their 220 trains to run there. And then when stage 1 opened, that's your route from Glasgow round to Mid-Calder Junction towards Edinburgh. We provide a turn-back service, mainly for the Vanti and the Royal Mail trains that really needed to run. Then, so that would open after day 17. The West Coast Main Line would then remain closed, which would then open at day 52. And then we'd have the rest of the layout to be built in stage 3, finally open the station area on day 88. So working towards the final blockade strategy, what we had was the main blockade stages, and as the routes opened up, we'd still have the West Coast Main Line engineering access over the weekends. And the benefits of this, it really avoided all the abortive works. It de-risks all the weekly stage strategy, which looking back now in our time of industrial action and me actually trying to get here this week, it would have been an absolute nightmare because so many of the shifts had got cancelled, couldn't put up isolations, last minute changes. I don't think the multi-stage strategy could have ever have worked in this climate. And what really helped from the signalling point of view is that we're working to everything to final. Everything was being built to final. There was no temporary routes, temporary signals. There was one set of driver and signaller training, which is a big challenge at times, and all the signalling data was tested to final. But the challenges in this, all the construction teams are all ready to be building this multi-stage strategy. They had to look at how much can they enable in the programme, changing all the resources, even plant hire and trying to get all the engineering train paths changed. It was a huge challenge. So I'm going to move on to some of the construction challenges that we had. So we've got our access, we've got our design, now we've just got to build it. So here we are at Carstairs again. So this is how you get to Carstairs. So there's a wee village nearby, and it's 20 miles an hour on a single track road. Or you've got a bridge next to the lovely hospital there, under the railway. Or you've got a bridge to the south, which was closed at the time, so you couldn't get access there. So it was very difficult trying to even get to the site. And because of such a huge construction job it was going to be, you have to set up compounds. So initially we had 3 compounds set up, 3 compound areas segregated off originally from 2021, where compound 1 there was shown for all the kind of office space, and 2 and 3 for signing in and all the plant and equipment being stored. And then later we had 2 more compounds added into the area. So compound 4 was mainly for recoveries and access to the south curve, while compound 5 was actually Cloburn Quarry, which we closed because of the blockade, and used that for staff access. So everyone would come sign in their part and be bussed around to wherever they were working. And moving on to enabling. So up until we got our final blockade, and outside the normal West Coast access times, all we had was Saturday nights. So this shows an example of the kind of stats that we had from a typical Saturday night running up into the scheme. So all you had was your 8.5 hours on a Saturday night. That was the only time you could get a possession. So that shows an example of 120 earths, about 160 people on site, 55 courses. I was out one night and there was 80 courses, and it needed 4 engineering supervisors. And so the scale of just getting on track, getting your isolations and actually getting to work every Saturday night to build this layout was huge. So it had to be managed. I really liked the last presentation and how they managed all their access planning, but what they did was weekly integration meetings and looking at what squads were needed where the isolations were going and where the plant and equipment was getting on, just to make sure that everyone was ready for the weekend ahead. And some more enabling. So out of the whole scheme, Carstairs East wasn't included at the beginning, but that was also the one that had to be done first. So they identified that the points at the East Junction could get renewed. So in 2021 was the first of the S&C renewals in week 9, and that was our first set of Mark III high drives that were installed. Signalling enabling as well. So to run the new Westlock WTS interlocking infrastructure, we needed 6 REBs that needed to get delivered to site and placed around. So I think that was in 2021 as well. And you can see as well the scale of some of the civils works just to be able to fit this in. into the embankment there. And OLE enabling, that was probably the biggest discipline for the enabling works, because all the OLE structures were already piled and built ahead of the main blockade. So I've got a wee video here that might just show, let's see, yep. So this was taken in January 2023, and it just shows the mishmash of all the old and new OLE structures, because essentially every Saturday night all the new electrification was built on top of the existing over Saturday nights with weekly transfer changes, and that shows some of the project totals. So 192 piled foundations, 17 kilometres of OLE removed and 23 installed. It really was a massive OLE undertaking, and most of that was done prior to the blockade. So we've done lots of enabling works and ready for the 88 days, so after 2 years. So these are some of the construction challenges that we found. So contaminated ballast. So there was known contaminated ballast in the area, but extra surveys were carried out and found that there was a lot more than expected. And then dealing with the engineering trains, Miller Hill wouldn't accept our trains, they had to go to Kingsmuir. So that actually changed the pathings for the engineering trains, the testing programme and everything, because the trains were routed in a different direction. So that was a huge challenge, very close to the blockade. For Carstairs. Another one, so in stage 1, when we had our isolations up for the whole area, and conveniently in between engineering trains, 750 metres of contact wire stolen south of Carstairs. So someone was out track patrolling and saw people running about, then noticed all the wires had gone. So thankfully, it happened when it wouldn't be so much of an impact to the project, but they did have to reroute some of the engineering trains from the up to the down using emergency crossovers to the south. But again, something that need to be vigilant of when you've got such a large site, and because isolation stretched so far, the project area was much larger. But, so that was about 7 kilometres south of Carstairs this happened. Okay, I don't know if there's swearing in this one, but so this is some challenges we had with the track bed. So there was a lot of peat and clay identified in the track bed investigations, but it was much worse on site. I have a better video of someone jumping, it looks like a trampoline, but I had their face in it, so we couldn't show it. Yeah. So this required more excavation and backfilling as well, and this shows the other line that Carstairs cord with the geosail layers. Drainage was this is going to be loud. Drainage was a big challenge as well. So there was also a culvert through the station which nobody knew about until they burst it. Not any records. But eventually 2 kilometres of track drainage was installed in the area. And this was a challenge for signalling as well. So the signalling cable route was actually in the down, it needed to be moved to the up to make way for the new down loop. And this was some of the recoveries as well. You couldn't hear it swearing there. But yeah, that just shows the drainage issues we had on site. Civils as well, huge work getting a new track layout. So at the north, we're extending it with a new down loop, so the embankment had to be widened, and this just shows the kind of levels of work where you've got the extra down loop there, widening the embankment. To do that, we needed to install piles. This is designed for the piles, and it needed to be quite a lot of piles. So on the downcess there was 103, and on the upcess there was 62 piles required to widen this. This shows the size of them, 900mm piles on the up and the down. Signal gantries as well, so 2 new signal gantries required for the cable routing and the new signals. They were pretty big because they had to span the 6 tracks, so this one's 34 metres wide. And this brought its own challenges. So the installation of the piles was late, as was the design. I had to change to a different contractor. Thankfully, RSA helped us out and installed the new piles, and this is before the pile cap. So when we were opening up the down main on the down loop at stage 2, we were supposed to have the down siding as well, but because of the late design installation of the pile caps, we couldn't open that, so that ended up being moved to stage 3. And the gantry booms were so large, and it was difficult to get to site. They were assembled in 12-metre sections, so they actually had to build a new haul road just to get the gantry cranes in. And another challenge we had with staging is that we were supposed to have a UTX going through the station platform lines to feed the new downside that opened up in stage 2. However, the programme changed of when they were going to dig out for the new track alignment, so if we can't go under, we'd have to go over. And thankfully, SPL and Arcadis designed a new structure just as an OTX for signalling and installed it as well. And this shows some of the signalling technology that's used. So it's all some of it's new and novel to the area. The good one is the ILS fold down signals that are dubbed maintenance free. They went down very well. And we've got the new Siemens West Race trackside system technology. And this shows some of the totals for signalling. So 90 kilometres of recovered cables and 76 new kilometres of cables, 42 new signals, 14 DNOs and 6 REBs. So for signalling, it was also a massive job. EMP as well to support that. So there was new PSP to power Carstairs as well, and that was a challenge getting that to site too. We couldn't fit in a conventional crane, so a modular crane was taken to site. As you can see here, it was lifted off onto the road, and then the crane was moved once they took the fence down to the line side as well to deliver it. And just to show the scale of the EMP renewals, these stretch far out with the main junction area, so that's a total of 33 miles of power renewals. And as well as the construction challenges, as we opened each stage to traffic, we had to manage that for both the signallers and for the train operators. So at the end of stage 1, what you can see here is the West Coast Main Line round to Edinburgh opening up, and thankfully we've got a really good relationship with our signalling colleagues at West of Scotland, and we said, how are we going to manage these out of correspondence indications where they're flashing up? A nice bit of black card cut out to shape was the pragmatic and accepted solution, thankfully. It could have been a lot more difficult or expensive. I think you might have seen this photo before, but this also shows when stage 2 was opened with the West Coast Main Line running, and then everyone being able to work in the kind of station area. We had Vortoc fencing. I couldn't find a stat on how many miles of Vortoc fencing we had, but it was quite a lot. The station platform as well. So the station's 300 metres long, and to the new 311, 312 alignment, which we saw the train at the adverse cant, that was a new alignment basically cutting off the edge of the station there. So, and because of the changes to the track geometry at the station platforms, it was decided that they'd be recoped and resurfaced as well with the platform wraps removed. But one of our key kind of outputs of the design is to maintain operational links, which we managed to do, and we resurfaced the platform, and ScotRail were very happy with that. And this shows at the end of the 8-day blockade, that's the first ScotRail train arriving at the station, which was very much welcomed, a nice photo opportunity there. And then what I'll show you now is a video of the first Avanti train running through after the TSRs were lifted in July, and some of the project totals as well. So for the first time in a very long time, trains were actually running not only at line speed at 100 miles an hour, but they actually, I think this video gets it up to 108 EPS. And that just shows you some of the totals for the track job. So 28 new point ends, 10 kilometres of plain line, nearly 12,000 new sleepers, and 119 engineering trains, and 51 tamping shifts. So yeah, that's set up at 108. So thanks very much for listening to the Carstairs presentation. That's me.